It's Friday, October 24th, 2025. It's a Friday 5-pack, and Ask or Tell Me Anything. That's next on the AM Update. Thank you for spending another week with me here on the AM Update. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. You may have noticed that the episodes have been published at a different time than you are used to. I'm having to do this because I'm still going back and forth with Apple about scheduling issues. Things are getting stuck within Apple's system, and so far no one at Apple, even though I'm going back and forth with somebody named Ruby, seems to be interested in actually getting down to the crux of the issue. Along those lines, you may notice a test or dummy episode come over your podcast feed over the weekend. I'm going to title it very obviously. Basically, that's just going to be me doing a dummy podcast episode. They need 24 hours to be able to check on things within their system, so I can't do that with a news morning update because the news just goes stale pretty quickly, but I can for a dummy episode. So if you see that come through your podcast feed this weekend, that is the story. Let's begin at the White House yesterday, where they confirmed that the illegal alien truck driver we told you about, although at the time of recording for Thursday's episode, we did not yet know that individual driving the tractor trailer in Ontario, California, killing 3 people, arrested for driving under the influence. He was indeed an illegal alien from India. Again, killing 3 people in that tractor trailer crash in Ontario. Here is Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, at the White House yesterday.
3 people in a DUI crash is an illegal immigrant who came in under the Biden administration. Do you know if California gave him a commercial driver's license? And then it also appears that California largely has not been cooperating with English proficiency standards. I'm wondering if the administration has any further plans to punish the state.
Yes, I can confirm that California gave this individual a license, and it is something that the Department of Transportation has already looked into. I know Secretary Duffy, who's doing a phenomenal job, has spoken on this many times in the crackdown that the Department of Transportation is taking on these licenses that are wrongfully being issued to people who clearly do not deserve to uphold these positions. As for this case in California, on October 22nd, ICE lodged an immigration detainer for this individual following his arrest by local authorities in California on charges, as you know, of manslaughter while intoxicated and driving under the influence. He killed 3 people, and he first entered the United States in 2022 through the southern border, and he was released into our country by the previous administration.
So there's Caroline Leavitt at the White House yesterday, indeed confirming that this man from India, Jashanpreet Singh, he did indeed have a commercial driver's license granted by the state of California. Gavin Newsom, speaking on behalf of the California state government, issued a press release yesterday blaming the Biden administration for letting this individual into the country illegally. Yes, that is a thing. That is Gavin Newsom, California, blaming the Biden administration for letting this individual into the country illegally. Speaking of things going on in California, President Trump announcing on Truth Social yesterday he's going to pause, or at least not go forward, with plans to surge federal government National Guard deployments in San Francisco to curb crime. President Trump says he's going to give the mayor in San Francisco a chance to do it on their own. Moving on, story number 2 in our Friday 5-pack. Speaking of President Trump, he was at the White House yesterday, again asked about the ongoing, don't call it a war, against the Latin American cartels.
And we're here today to discuss a sweeping, unprecedented, and historically successful operation that my administration has carried out in recent weeks to arrest, prosecute, and permanently remove members of foreign drug cartels from American soil. And the people gathered around this table are the ones that are doing it, and in this room. Some of them sitting a little behind. In fact, some of them, I'm surprised, are not actually at the table. You people should be very insulted by that. But you've done a great job back there. On my first day in office earlier this year, I signed an executive order to officially designate the drug cartels and savage transnational gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. It was my honor to do so. And on that same day, I also signed an order directing the creation of the Homeland Security Task Force to bring together all federal, state, and local partners to achieve the national policy goal of eliminating the cartel presence in America once and for all. And the results are, and it's early, and the results are spectacular.
President Trump also indicating that they're not ruling out some kinetic warfare on land, not just by sea, against the cartels. Story number 3, current New York City mayor and independent, that would be Eric Adams, endorsed independent candidate Andrew Cuomo for mayor of New York.
Families are under attack in the city. Working class people are under attack. African Americans and Hispanic families are under attack. Italian and Irish families are under attack. When you give the finger to a statue that's represented to the Italian community, you're saying you don't give a damn. When you tell Jewish residents that you need globalized intifada, you're saying you don't care. When you go after communities and state that you're going to raise their taxes because of their ethnicity, that's what black and brown communities are going through right now. Taxes are higher in their community because of what was done.
There is current New York City Mayor Eric Adams at a press conference yesterday where he announced he is throwing his support behind independent mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo for mayor of the nation's largest city. That is something else, is it not? Eric Adams, elected as a Democrat, left the Democrat Party, left the race for re-election, and now throws his support behind independent candidate Andrew Cuomo. Well, that was quite a story that broke yesterday morning. FBI Director Kash Patel, along with the DOJ, is naming multiple high-profile NBA arrests. That would be the National Basketball Association. We just had that clip randomly from Michael Jordan yesterday. Woke up to the news that there were a bunch of current and some former NBA stars who were arrested yesterday morning for fixing games, allegedly. Here is FBI Director Kash Patel yesterday morning.
Individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. Individuals such as...
So I know that the mob never truly went away, but apparently the Sicilian Mafia is just back at it again. Just back at it. Man, there are 2 cases here. One involving an illegal set of poker games that would involve former high-profile NBA stars. They would lure in unsuspecting rich marks, basically, and just fix the poker games. And they would use high-tech methods straight out of the movies. That's one case. That's what Chauncey Billups, the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, that's what he's caught up in, allegedly. And then the other case is what Rozier, the player for the Miami Heat, he is allegedly caught up in throwing games or fixing games based on player props. Just bizarre and weird stuff. Let's go finally on this Friday 5-pack back to the state of California, where copper wire thieves are hitting electric vehicles charging stations. Here is the story from the ABC affiliate in Los Angeles.
Could copper theft slow LA's move towards a zero-emissions future? Thieves are targeting EV chargers for copper, cutting cords, even breaking into chargers using a hacksaw. According to CleanTech, there's 60,630 public and workplace EV chargers in the greater Los Angeles region.
Cutting a connector doesn't fall underneath warranty. And so when you start there, it can get quite expensive, specifically because it's going to come out of the pocket of the person that deployed the charging station.
So there you have it, Los Angeles having an issue with copper thieves destroying, damaging, sometimes irreversibly, electric vehicle charging stations. Talk about killing 2 birds with 1 stone right there. using a hacksaw to cut a live wire just for the copper. And then you're actually damaging the electric vehicle infrastructure, which is a scam to begin with anyway. Electric vehicles are. I mean, I think EVs, like if I had enough money to just blow it on a Tesla, I think that would be cool. They're just novelty to me. They're not really practical and utilitarian. But talk about solving two problems at once. You can take out the thieves by electrocuting them inadvertently for stealing copper out of EV charging stations, thereby damaging the infrastructure and greatly diminishing the chances that people will fall for the novelty of electric vehicles. I mean, I saw this story. I thought, hey, let's just let him go. I'll allow it. When we come back, it's going to be another round of Ask or Tell Me Anything. That's coming up next. Ask or Tell Me Anything once more. Final segment this week on the AM Update. Zach Stewart wants to know, do you think Mamdani winning the mayoral race in New York could finally wake people up to how terrible and ineffective socialism actually is? I feel that if his policies actually go into effect, there will be a mass exodus of businesses and police in life. They will be terrible to the point where the entire country can see it. Man, Zach, I hope that is the case, but I don't probably think so. And it's because of something that I've said repeatedly about Zoran Mamdani. Now, this cuts both ways, and I've used it kind of in both ways. Number one, the type of person, I mean, this is shaping up, we think, to be a landslide election in favor of Zoran Mamdani. An electorate that's already to the point where they can elect Zoran Mamdani in a landslide is probably so far gone, there is no consequence that will truly wake them up. The second is this, and this is the part that I think can cut both ways. Zoran Mamdani has no experience running anything. So it's going to be on incompetence on top of just a sadistic worldview. That's what he has. So that cuts both ways. Yes, he's going to just suck at making the trains run on time, which most socialists, communists, they suck at that too. But in terms of actually implementing his worldview, is he going to suck at that as well? Now, if it's the double whammy, where he is magically competent and ruthless in implementing his worldview, that's the point where I think this could get so bad where it's just unavoidable. Watching New York City may be a train wreck. But just as I'm talking out loud here, I don't know. I guess my answer to your question is I don't know, because I think it could go both ways. I think New York City just might be too far gone. Now, whether or not it's a beacon or really a burning dumpster to the rest of the country, that remains to be seen. Good question, though. Toby Vaughn says, Gitmo, YMCA. Am I missing something here? Isn't there a YMCA at Gitmo? I mean, here, let me look it up here. Guantanamo Bay was colloquially referred to as YMCA. You must come here. Or you must come ashore. During its early years as a U.S. naval base in Cuba, this nickname was not related to the actual YMCA organization, an acronym used by military personnel. So it's an inside joke. Okay, congratulations. I'd like to be a part of those one day. Gary Rasmussen says, the Dear Cattle Rancher post. That's a good nickname for that post from Truth Social from Trump the other day. The Dear Cattle Rancher post was the last straw for a lot of the countryside. I'm not saying they're going to vote Democrat, but I can see them not showing up at midterms. Beef is not high when relative to the rest of inflation out there. $4,000 gold says it all. Gary, I fear you're probably correct. And there still is time to course correct from the Trump administration. I've heard all sorts of, not explanations, but kind of more context when it comes to what is being done here with the proposed beef deal with Argentina. When it comes to the Argentinian perspective, I've seen it posited that this is doing Javier Milei a solid to make him more popular, hopefully, by keeping Argentina's economy afloat so that he doesn't get ousted and replaced with a gay race communist. I've heard that posited. I've also heard it posited that, yes, we have, and I totally agree with this, I think it's just factually a fact, we have more than enough room, we have more than enough capacity here in the United States to grow our own beef and have it sold at a decent price. The problem is there's basically a meatpacking cartel that's getting in the way of this. And they are basically forming a racket around beef prices. So I hope word about these two issues gets to President Trump, because I agree this is not a good look for some of your most ardent supporters. Mark Caliber says this may be outside of your area of expertise, but why are the Mormons embracing the LGBTQFU community, especially in Utah? I have not heard of that. Like every religion, I'm sure that there are those who are much more liberal, bend to the commies much more. So I've not heard that, and I've not talked to my Mormon friends much recently, at least not about that particular area. So that would be news to me. Ultra Maga Man says, thank you for standing up to grifting right-wing conspirators who care more about their notoriety than asking honest questions in a productive, not destructive frame. By the way, I rarely block people, but I just blocked Candace Owens. Her recent actions warrant old-school shunning by our side. I tend to agree with that. Usually, when I get pushback to anything I say about Candace Owens, it's like, why aren't you asking the questions? Why aren't you standing up to all the inconsistencies? No specific things. Every once in a while, I will get a few specifics. Things like, I got this the other day. Charlie Kirk was not shot by the furry lover. Okay, where's your evidence for that? Where are the SD cards? Like the SD cards from the camera? I'm guessing the police have those. Turning Point staff removed the SD cards. They're on video, removing the SD cards immediately, which was smart of them to do so. So I'm guessing they turned those over to the authorities. We don't know this because they're not in trial yet. But a Turning Point employee is on camera removing the SD cards, which was smart and good thinking in that situation. Why was there a remodel? Do we know there was a remodel? I mean, they cleaned off that area. Maybe there was blood set in the cement there that they were never going to be able to get off, so they decided to remodel. If there even was a remodel. A 30-06, really? I don't know. Guys, human beings are not gel. We're not gel. Go watch a deer getting shot with a 30-06. I did. It dropped right away. It didn't explode. I've gone and watched video. I did all the things that you told me to do in the early stages of this. I've watched a deer getting shot with a 30-06. It goes down right away. It doesn't explode. Yes, it's high caliber. But it didn't explode. Why no autopsy? I'm pretty sure there was an autopsy. Pretty sure there was. So, some people's brains are broken. You know, you can get a broken brain like Tua Tagovailoa, the Miami Dolphins multi-concussed quarterback. And all you're seeing all day are unicorns, including on game day. Or you can watch Candace Owens. James Moon says, will anyone ever hold FEMA accountable for ignoring disaster victims and making a database on those who publicly supported conservatives or MAGA? I have not heard or confirmed that last part. In regards to holding FEMA accountable, I certainly hope so. Now, right-wingers are the least likely to say, hey, the government needs to help me, but is certainly a slap in the face when you are a taxpayer to have FEMA passing over your doorstep because and based on the sign in your front lawn, which I think is what this is in relation to. So I hope somebody gets held accountable, but show it to me before I believe and say, yes, they will be held accountable. Red R says, how deep have you delved into the origins and science of viruses? A little bit. Some of the more, let's call it schizo posts in the aftermath of COVID that I kind of started to research in, and this has been a while since I've done this. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, as I typically do with Ask or Tell Me Anything. There was a circle of thought, and I think it's been ousted from polite company for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe the science just legitimately was bad, or maybe it was good and inconvenient, saying that viruses are not real. They're not real. That the origin of sickness is something completely different. Now, I don't know about that. It seems like virology is fairly well trodden, or so they want us to believe. But until I see some definitive proof that, and I think the thinking was, again, I'm doing this off the top of my head, that viruses are not what make us sick, basically. So viruses exist, but they're not what make us sick. What makes us sick always is inflammation. Always, always, always inflammation. So maybe it's just 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other, that type of thing. So the origins and science of viruses, I don't know. I think that's something that we can ask questions about so long as we get some reliable or plausible answers backed by real science. Now, where would we go to find answers that we would actually trust? That's a great question. Jay says, he's got a question about one of my coworkers at work. Jay, this is not the One of My Coworkers at Work podcast. This is the AM Update, Aaron McIntire. So if you got a question from one of my coworkers, go ask them. Three Boy Dad says, will Trump be forced to basically nationalize artificial intelligence? I don't know. You're going to have to tell me more about that question. I don't know what that means. Is this having something to do with power consumption? You know, if it's something to do with that, then I think there needs to be some sort of standard, at least on the state levels, for how much data centers can actually use or how much of their power is subsidized by the taxpayer. Because I'm telling you, we've got a lot of data centers here in Iowa, especially right around where I live, very close to where I live. And maybe it's because this was a very humid summer, but by golly, our electricity bills this summer were off the charts. And when I say more humid, we have a basement that's completely submerged underground, and so we have to run multiple dehumidifiers all summer long. So maybe that's why my electric bill was so high this year, but yeah, the data centers and electricity, that is a major problem. Could be solved with nuclear power rather quickly, like 5 to 10 years. But the green cultists don't want to talk about that. Bob Carl says, do you believe Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy needs a task force to police the trucking industry? Yep. For not only illegal immigrant drivers, yep, but also non-English speaking drivers, yep. And this could be accomplished. I already said this back when we had the illegal alien, by the last name, of course, as well, of Singh back in Florida a couple months ago. It's just every single weight station in the United States, every single one of those, I believe, yes, they are run by the states, but I'm sure they have some funding from the Department of Transportation. So change the guidelines for a period of 2 months so that it's basically inescapable. You are making sure that every single weigh station, you do a sting operation, a long-term sting operation. Every weigh station across the United States, every truck that stops there, they have to be able to speak English. If they don't, that's an automatic revocation of their CDL. They are arrested. They are arrested for driving while being unable to speak English, and then they are deported if they're not here legally. And then you make sure that you've got as many routes as possible from trying to avoid weigh stations. You've got those cut off with local law enforcement so that they can't get around those weigh stations. That's what I would do. Simple, not easy, but simple. That's going to do it for a Friday. Thank you again for listening this week. If you remember and you're still listening, don't forget to give me a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful weekend. Back at it again on Monday.